Hey guys and gals, this is Will from Cooter's Custom Blacksmithing. Welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're making a touch mark. What is a touch mark, you might ask? Well, a touch mark, traditionally also referred to as a maker's mark, would be a blacksmith's signature. The whole purpose behind it was more, in modern terms, as a warranty type of thing. I went ahead, took my logo, and just reversed it on a piece of paper in a couple of different sizes. What we're going to do is take this piece of high carbon 5/8 that I showed you previously, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some hand files and the Dremel. In case you don't know, this thingy right here, diamond tip blade on it. This will help me get into the finer details. Just of the piece. Mainly it's a time saver. I mean, you could do the whole thing with files. It's annoying. I've made one maker's mark before. This time I did change my design just a little bit, make it a little easier on myself. One word of advice if you're making your own touch mark, the less lines the better. You really don't want too many curves, too many sharp edges. Basically in general, you don't want it cluttered. The more cluttered it is, the sloppier it's going to look and the messier it's going to look. Just save yourself the trouble. Keep it simple. And hopefully you will enjoy the video. Alright, so let's see which one looks best. I already kind of judged it up, and I think it's going to be this one here. So and of course I made 2 copies because I'm probably going to mess this up. So basically I can see in the shadow where this needs to be. Just a little dab of super glue. And then just kind of position it where I want it. That looks pretty good. So the biggest thing is you want to make sure, the lines obviously aren't out past the metal at all, because the lines are what's going to be what stays. And we're going to remove everything else. So I know the last time I did this, that came out quite terribly because, well, I wasn't very good at filing. I'm still not, but we'll see how this one turns out. Okay, I apologize. The camera cut out there halfway through the time lapse, but you get the idea. The biggest thing is, well, here's the finished product. You want to be careful of, the sharp edges. That's what the paper's for. I left myself as much room as I could, and then once I got most of the shape that I wanted, I went and touched it up with the Dremel and the hand file. If it'll focus there. There we go. So what I did is, that's the test. I tested it on some wet leather just to see, you know, it's a little tough right there in the corner of the W's, but there's not much else I can do about that. Not without getting really crazy. And for me, I'm okay with that. You know, I don't want to get too crazy and ruin it and have to start all over again. That's just annoying and time consuming. So, what are we going to do now? So now I got this nice piece of 5/8, 6 inches long. What I want to do is I want to square off the end here. The reason for that is to help index it better, plus it'll help make a smaller area for me to hit, making me more accurate in the long run. Plus, with a smaller head, you know, more force will be driven directly through the whole piece. I don't want to square it off so much that, you know, this is like a needle head, but yeah. And then what we're going to do is we are going to harden this. What that means is we're going to quench it. We'll go through that process. And then after that, we're going to temper it back, just because I don't want it too hard, because I don't want these pieces to break off when I'm trying to stamp something. But I want it hard enough that it's not going to deform it with the heat. So, let's go ahead and get the forge lit up. Okay, so I got the forge on. I tried it with it off, but it cooled off too quickly, so we're going to have to do this with it on. I'm going to try to talk loud enough that hopefully you can hear me over it. Alright, so I got it gripped right where I want it. I don't have a death grip on this because I don't want to deform it. I want to get some of this forge steel off. Let's clean it up real fast. I'm using the flat side of the hammer. I don't want to draw this out. I just want to square it up. Make sure you hit both sides. Staying square. Now see, that's still red, but I'm going to put it back in because I don't want to crack this. Alright, so I want to hit it from the other side this time. Just trying to keep this as center as I can. Pro tip, always know where your hammer is. That's about as much as I want to go, so I'm going to put it back in just to get a fresh heat. And I'm going to square it back up. Alright, and then after I get this all square, what we're going to do is I'm going to go through what's called the normalizing cycle. So, from using the file, it work hardens the piece. So, what you want to do in a normalizing cycle is you heat it up past critical temperature and then let it cool back down naturally to help shrink in the grain structure and avoid it cracking during the actual quench. Alright, I went through my normalizing cycle, so now we're ready for quenching. So it's nice and cold right now. One thing I got, my oil is preheated. And I got a magnet over here. So what we're going to do is for 01, it quenches it between 1450 and 1500 degrees. And steel is non-magnetic right at about 1400, 1425. So once it becomes non-magnetic, that's when we know it's time to quench. Alright, so I knocked some of that forge scale off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to just stick it in there, because if I just stick it in there, it's going to get too hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make slow passes in front of the flame, and I'll slowly watch it warm up. As it warms up, I'm going to just keep checking it with the magnet. Yeah, it's still sticky, so back in we go. Alright, it's only sticking a little bit. We got just a little bit more to go. I think that's it. I'm going to stick it in real quick and then quench. So now I'm just going to let that sit there until it cools off in the oil. And when I pull this out, it's still going to be hot. So I'm going to set it off to the side for a bit. And then I'll move on to tempering. Okay, so we got it hardened. I know it's hard because I file tested it. So, see that? I mean, it digs in a little bit, but that's okay because we're going to take that back anyways. But for the most part, you know, skate's pretty easy. I'm not overly concerned that it's not the hardest it can be, because I don't care. Now what I went ahead and did is I just cleaned up a nice clean section there, and the reason for that is we're going to temper this with a torch. And tempering is just pulling back the hardness, usually to a set temperature. Now I'm just kind of eyeballing this because, again, I don't really care how hard it is. It's not that important. Now there's what we call temper colors, and it goes from like a yellow to a gold to an amber, from that up to about a blue to a purple to almost black again. I'm aiming for like a purple, not quite purple, but almost a golden color throughout this whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go up and down the whole thing, back and forth, try and get all sides as I can, and eventually you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll show you as it's doing it, it's going to change the colors. But mostly I'm going to concentrate the heat in the back here, because I really don't want this end hard, because if this is hard, it's just going to split, which it did on one of my punches, and I had to fix it. So this I definitely want soft. I do not want this hard. So this I'm going to probably concentrate most of the heat and just have it travel up. But to help it out, I'm going to kind of go up and down a little bit. But most of my heat's going to be concentrated on the actual hammer end of the mark. So. Right there you can already see it. See how that tip's purple? That means pretty much all the hardness is taken out of the hammer end of that. Eventually the heat's going to travel down, and you'll be able to see those colors actually run down the length of the piece. I mean, I can already see it. The gold's still about here-ish already. And then once I get this temper to where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and just re-quench it to stop it, so it doesn't continue to creep on me. You can really see where that line is now. Just trying to pull that down as far as I can. Purple, that's about where I want it, so I don't want to go any farther than that. I'll just stick it in the quench. Okay, I just pulled it out of the quench, but I wanted to make sure you actually could see what I was talking about. So if you see here on the striking end how it's all almost black, like a really, really dark purple, and then it kind of transitions into a gold. I didn't quite catch it where I wanted it, or rather, I went a little bit too... What's the word I'm looking for? Because I wanted this color here on the tip. Like just before it turns purple. I didn't quite get that here in the middle section of the stem. But that's the color I was aiming for. But if you look at the tip, like here against like bare steel, see how it's like a really nice ambery color? That's what I wanted right on the tip. I mean, this is going to change temperament anyways as I use it, just because I'm using it on hot steel. So, you know, it's going to heat up naturally. I'm going to, like you would with any hot cut tool, you're going to want to keep it cool while you're using it. You know, multiple extended use, all that good stuff. But, you know, usually with a maker's mark, you're just going to set it down, tap it once, and then... that's all you're going to do. You're not going to re-tap it. Because even if I tapped it once and I didn't like it, the odds of me being able to line it right back up again and not making it worse is just near impossible. So, usually it's a one hit, one try type of deal. So I'll get this cleaned up and I'll show you with it all somewhat polished. Alright guys, so here's the final product. I rounded off the sharp edges on the hammer end just a little bit. Yeah, I didn't get too carried away like I said. But overall I'm pretty happy with it. You know, definitely better than my first one. But other than that, you know, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. Any suggestions for future touch marks, you know, drop those down in the comments as well. Leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And see you in the next one.